On Tuesday, October the 20th, I was in Bray for the funerals of Tara Gilbert, who had been pregnant, her partner Willie Lynch, their daughters Jodie and Kelsey, and Willie's brother Jimmy. And 2 days later, I was in Sandyford for the funerals of Sylvia and Tommy Connors, and their children Jimmy, Christy and Mary. And Sylvia was the sister of Willie and Jimmy Lynch. They were all victims of the fire at the halting site at Glenamuck. In my life, I've been at many funerals, too many funerals, but I freely admit that I found these two especially sad and upsetting. I want to extend to the Lynch, Connors and Gilbert families and to the entire traveller community my deepest sympathies. Gunyani Gia Trokra or Ananam, Guru Shehan Shiri Aku. Sylvia, Willie and Jimmy's brother John spoke at Thursday's funeral. His voice frequently faltered as he tried to hold back the raw emotion evident in his face. He described the last day they had all been together. He said, "We had a lovely day. The kids were playing in my garden. But the next morning came the call. I thought it was a hoax call. Then, in a minute, I realised all my family was gone. My brothers, my sister, my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law, my nephews and nieces, the whole lot gone in one go." Imagine Minister getting that call. Bhí mé Féin Mary Lou, couple of Baal, Ella Owen, Oireachtas, Cordy Oichula, Augustini Ella Sinn Féin and Sinn, Cion Covrone, a Yanu leis an phobal lucht siúil, agus Cion Shasul Yo go Pibli. But the traveller community needs more than mere sympathy and solidarity. The prejudice and discrimination many travellers face has worsened over recent years. The response of the governments and the health and educational institutions of this state has been appalling. The opposition to the erection of a temporary halting site for those bereaved by the Carrickmines fire is deeply disappointing. The decisions to provide the families with a site on a parking lot that lacks basic amenities is an indictment of this and successive governments. It is deeply shameful. Some people in the settled community blame travellers for antisocial behaviour and crime. But even if some travellers, like some in the settled community, behave badly, that is no reason to demonise and exclude an entire community. The vast majority of travellers are decent and good, God-fearing people. But ignorance breeds fear, and the only cure for ignorance is knowledge, and that comes from education and engagement. Surely all citizens should have the right to receive equal service in shops and pubs. Surely they should be able to access education and health services and work and accommodation on the same basis as everyone else. Why can't every Irish citizen enjoy the rights and entitlements that comes with that citizenship on the same basis as all others, and have their children treated as we would wish to be treated also? Regrettably, that is not the case. Every traveller child faces a life in which he or she will not be part of wider Irish society, but they will be part of the most socially disadvantaged group in that society. The traveller child will leave school earlier, will have little prospect of work, will suffer ill health and poverty, and will die younger. He or she will endure substandard living conditions. He or she will have no access to basic facilities such as sanitation, water or electricity. They will face discrimination in employment, and most will never work. Cutbacks in education, health and other services have impacted severely on the traveller community. The suicide rate is 6 times that of the settled community. And at the root of all these problems are the unacceptable levels of prejudice, discrimination and social exclusion experienced by travellers at institutional and other levels. Now, I'm proud to be Irish. The people of Ireland are no mean people. We have a very high regard for ourselves with some justification. And we are creative and we are innovative and we are generous. But like all human beings, we have our faults. A friend of mine, a very successful businessman, told me once that the Irish would save you from drowning, but they would never teach you how to swim. That remark could explain why there is an underlying racism at work in our society, which has created our own unique form of apartheid. In the aftermath of the Carrickmines fire, we should hold up a mirror to ourselves as a people. Could it be that our attitude is in reality that there is no place in modern Ireland for the traveller community? Could that be our position? There is no place in our Ireland for the traveller community? That's at odds with the generosity and the inclusivity demonstrated by Irish society in the recent marriage equality campaign, or the solidarity with refugees from the Middle East, or the amazing amounts of money raised each year by charities for international relief programmes. And the widespread expressions of sympathy following the Carrickmines fire have provided some hope that this situation could again be turned around. But there is an onus on politicians and government to ensure that something positive, something good, comes from this disaster. Caithimid orc dairira, fat charmach, arish or andoi, a caithimid mar phobal lesh and locht shul. The Oireachtas Joint Committee on Justice, Defence and Equality recommended that this state recognises the ethnicity of the traveller community. The government needs to act on this. It doesn't need legislation, doesn't need a constitutional referendum. And such a development, of course, would not solve the problems which confront the traveller community, but it would demonstrate leadership on this issue by the government and set a clear and positive example. But much more needs to be done. There is among travellers an articulate grassroots leadership well able to voice travellers' issues and well able also to raise that community's awareness of their rights. And some of them are in the gallery, agus Curran Falshamore row of a lig. There is also, after decades, and we must recognise this, after decades of discrimination and demonisation, a sense of demoralisation, of low self-worth, of inferiority among some travellers, and this has to be combated. Yesterday morning, I received a letter from a woman member of the traveller community that illustrates some of the difficulties they face. She wrote, "I applied for a bay and a permanent halting site in 1994. At the time, I was 32 years of age with a young family. I am now 53 years of age, with most of my family reared, and I am now a grandmother for 14 grandchildren, and I am still on the list for a bay and a permanent halting site. Our site is situated beside a dump and a recycling waste food plant. In the warmer weather, we are constantly infested with flies. The whole site is infested with rats. We feel our case is hopeless, and I feel the way that things are going, I will be dead by the time they build a permanent halting site. There is an urgent need to establish a national forum across the island of Ireland involving travellers and the settled community, including representatives of all political parties, of government, of local authorities, of health and education sectors, and representatives of media organisations to plan a way forward. And such a forum could discuss openly and in detail how discrimination, how prejudice against travellers can be confronted, including prejudicial attitudes facilitated by the actions of some politicians and media outlets. Dead fasce multa, a yanu kion etiquette occur or an phobal, madra lesh and locht shul. 2 weeks ago, I put this proposition of a national forum to the Taoiseach, and he rejected it. His view is that the existing structures can meet this need, but patently they cannot. As we approach the centenary celebration of the 1916 Rising and of the proclamation, we need to ask, what type of society do we want? What kind of Ireland do we want? Do we want the same that exists now? Is this good enough? Did the proclamation say Irish men and Irish women, unless you're a traveller? Do we want an Ireland where we put a grieving family to live on a car park as we celebrate the Rising? Or where a woman rears her children and her grandchildren in a rat-infested, fly-infested dump beside a waste food recycling plant? Or do we want an Ireland which seeks to implement the great ideas of equality and human and civil rights that mark the proclamation out as one of the great freedom charters of modern times? After Carrickmines, there was an onus on all of us to stop and examine what occurred, why it occurred, and how travellers are treated. The proclamation declares that all of us are equal, and that means that if the rights of one are diminished, then the rights of all are diminished. This is not solely a legislative issue or a problem over the lack of resources. It's a moral issue. And if you want to understand, even in a very small way, how travellers feel, then try to put yourself, Minister, in their shoes. How would you look at the world? How would you look at Ireland then? There have been a number of negative phone calls to our party criticising our decision to table this private member's business. And of course we could have opted for a safer issue. But what sort of Republicans would we be then? We cannot overcome this challenge except by strong and resolute leadership and clear and unequivocal legislation that underpins equality for every citizen. Of course, legislation cannot solve the problem alone. It will only be finally resolved when our society embraces the differences among citizens that make up the diversity and the uniqueness of our Irish nation. That means leaders, including the government, must lead by example, and I would urge all Teachta Dála to support the Sinn Féin motion, and let us begin the work of making this society better for all of us, but especially for those in the traveller community.
Thank you. I now call on Minister